episode of Her Club True Stories. On today's episode, we have a very multifaceted and a very creative person. And she is Vaidehi Krishnan, aged 63, and she is a mom of two. She has a master's in rural development, a passion for gender studies, nutrition, and health education. For her, women's education, emotional and holistic well-being is of prime importance. And with that as a background and backed by a dedicated team of volunteers and two like-minded professionals, she founded the Women's Synergy in May 2013, which is currently operational in Delhi and Bangalore. In her 20 years of career, she has handled diverse portfolios in non-profit organizations also. That's not all about her. She is also the author of a debut book called as Poetic Reflections, which is a participatory workbook on happiness, health, and relationship. She has been awarded by the Apna International Business Network, AIBN, in March 2019 for her missions and her contributions. So welcome to our platform, Vaidehi ma'am. I'm so good. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Shilpa, because this is also an opportunity for me to share my thoughts with the wider public. And let me begin with first appreciating your efforts. As a young woman, you wanted to come and interview other women and share their life experiences and make me a part of the entire initiative. Thank you so much.
We are honored. I am honored. Okay.
Same here.
Yeah. So to begin with, for a woman who embarks on a journey for the betterment of other women, small girls in the society, especially rural, I would like to understand from you. The first part is, one quote that you have always lived by.
Well, when it comes to women, and generally for everyone, there is a tendency to look through others' spectacles, others' lenses, So that I think one should avoid, So that's the quote I would say,
Okay.
Do not slip into the tendency of looking at yourself through others' lenses. And I've lived by it. At least the later part of my life.
Yes. Okay. And could you let us know about a little about your upbringing?
Yeah, born of conservative yet highly progressive parents in the family. I was one among three, so three siblings. Elder brother and younger brother of mine. So one thing I can strongly attribute my success in life is nothing other than their way of upbringing. They had instilled a lot of courage, wisdom, and resilience and whatnot. I mean, so the entire thing I would, if I can look back to one solid source, that's my parents upbringing, especially my mother and my father, equally so.
Okay.
Both of them were instrumental in shaping me up, shaping us up, and making us face various situations in life.
Okay, so the reason I asked you because doing so many things in a lifetime requires one to be very strong, especially women, and it generally depends on the type of upbringing that you have come up with. So those are the strong values that you carry on and you decide to pass on amongst others. So that is why, that is the most important reason, I asked you about your upbringing, because that has made you what you are today. Yeah. Okay. So, and also you have graduated graduated as a master's in rural development. What made you choose that subject?
So going a little back to my school level, well, I had a very sketchy schooling and I was mostly homeschooled by my mother. So I feel that I know so much about the first generation learners because of this. The fact that my parents were highly educated makes me get filled with a lot of awe and wonder as to how children not having educated parents, being first generation learners, are coping up with the entire process. It's really great, and I have a tremendous respect. Leaps and bounds later, and you'd be surprised to know that my education terminated with graduate was only 7 years ago that I got my master's in rural development. So at the age of 56, I got my master's. So thanks to the continuing education system and thanks to everything that motivated me. I had by then, after a career break of 20 years to bring up my children, I bounced back. And then having served the social sector and having traveled intensively across India, various places in India, I picked up a penchant for knowing Indian women, especially in the rural landscape, So that is why I said, let me do this, because it had lots of elements of rural health, rural hygiene, the psychology, and so many interesting things I wanted to catch up basically, and I dedicated it to my mother basically because she felt that her ill health had come in the way of my education. She was very much for girl education and girls' education. She felt it was so important, and she regretted that she might have been an impediment. So I dedicated, although she was no more at that time, but it was a mental dedication.
Yeah. Okay. So, growing up, generally girls are, I would not say taught, but it is already installed in their mind that, the other girls or women are your competitors. You have to better them. You have to look good. You have to cook better than her. You have to, ace everything better than another woman. So women are pitted against each other. What are your thoughts on it?
My entire life was filled with self-counseling. Two things were really very distinct: self-care and self-counseling, which I would really like to share with women across the globe. How important is this for you to reflect, understand your strengths, dive into yourself and come out with those strengths, and start zooming in on all those positives. That's how the entire philosophy called appreciative inquiry that I had adapted for my mission, for my organization, as well as for my personal life and for women as in collective group, developing a collective vision for themselves. If you could just break your own records rather than compare yourself, and also teach your children as to how they could, look how they could progress, getting inspired by those, but not comparing themselves and belittling themselves.
Correct.
So that's very important, I think.
Okay, so a little more about what do you exactly do when you say that you facilitate women empowerment, especially in the rural areas?
We've not yet taken up rural areas per se, although I've traveled and during my professional stints, I had a lot of engagement with rural women. But when it comes to women's synergy, we've not yet ventured that far. But definitely with women who had come into the urban area from the rural areas. So they do have the traits of rural thing within them. The deficiencies, the way they look at themselves, the way they are constantly groping, to adjust in the urban thing. It's really pathetic. Major things are health and livelihoods. So we do our best to get these women, challenged women, to have access to resources, try to articulate their problems, try to find out the best ways of accessing all these resources by getting connected through our forum. That's why we have a wider forum where we have women who are educated, who are not so disadvantaged. We have every level of women on our platform. So we do not have any criteria for women becoming members of our wide network called symbiotic networks of women. This is why. So that the necessary exposures and the interfaces happen, you know. So we have them. Our focus is definitely on the challenge, the circumstantially challenge, that is, so they are constant source of inspiration. So that's how we help them connect and network and be proactive and articulate this thing, be more expressive, be more positive, and all that. And then look how they can do justice to their own thing, be aware of their rights. Even before going to gender rights, they need to basically know what their human rights are, isn't it? So beginning from human rights, they move on to gender rights, the reproductive rights, and so many other areas, you know.
How does a woman approach you?
I bank on this huge network to be acting as a conduit between women's energy and the real persons in need. That is why we had got this multi-level of women on our network called symbiotic network. It's a huge thing constituted by women of various backgrounds, irrespective of their age, their socioeconomic status, their academic status, their cultural, regional, and call it whatever background. So irrespective of that, they just are women of India. This thing, where it's a professional yet flexible platform where you can get involved without any hassles of committing time that is not realistic or doable. So it's professional because if you commit, you decide if your involvement is once a month or 1 to 6 months, or you just want to do one workshop, or you want to spend a regular thing over weekends. It's up to you. So professionally, at least you commit and you stick to it. But there's nothing like that you have to give so many hours to women's energy.
Okay.
So that
once you educate them, say you give them trainings on financial literacy or English, what happens next?
See, what happens is that the woman has to then take it forward. She can go on seeking similar opportunities to upgrade herself here or elsewhere. So the self initiative is triggered, so to speak. And then for y'all, it's the gratification you get, and also if it is a direct workshop that you conduct, it involves your time involvement. If you want to get something in return for it monetarily, that's also possible, because then we then allow you to charge from the participants, because our participants are not necessarily only from the financially challenged backgrounds, they also from several other backgrounds, challenged albeit, and they want to invest in their own growth and development. So small sums of money they may be willing. So like if you want to take a session on photography, and we can always ask them to make the payment to you. So you can give, and then in that model, however, since we are facilitating the entire process, and since they are our participants, we take a small contribution. So we leave it to you, and it changes from anywhere from 10 to 20%. We take it into our circumstantially challenged women's fund. So you can make your own earnings by selling your skills and parking a small portion of your training revenue into our fund. This is one model. If you want to really go the philanthropic mode, you're most welcome. Your thing will be acknowledged, you'll be accredited across our social media channels and our reports and all that, annual reports and all. So it all is up to you. That's why I said it's very flexible. So it's absolutely your choice. Nothing is this thing except that small norms we have, participation norms and this thing. So we have only women, not children. And we can have male trainers, but generally, mostly it's all women coming forward to reach out to other women. So mostly we have women. We do have men also as resource persons. as volunteers also we involve men. We don't empower women in isolation. I don't believe that it can be done. Because every woman has her own siblings at home, as male siblings or brothers, her father, her father-in-law or her husband and all that. So we don't believe in empowering her and alienating her to empower her, isn't it? We don't.
Correct.
So we encourage because the ultimate thing is that she should have a harmonious life. She should know how to get along with her male counterparts at a workplace, even, isn't it?
Yeah.
So day in and day out, she interacts with men. So there's nothing like putting them on a higher pedestal or them women on a higher pedestal. It's not about pitching them against them. It's about getting them to see eye to eye with one another.
Okay.
Even as parents, you're supposed to see eye to eye so that your children can get the correct direction in life.
Yes, so absolutely true. Yes. So having, after we discuss your women's energy, I'd like to know about your debut book, Poetic Reflections. How did that happen?
We all have to share whatever we learned, or you have to express your gratitude. That's one way of expressing my gratitude for the events in my life. All my events, all that I had faced were quite adventurous. Like I could walk off with the most gruesome events with a lot of lessons. So the takeaway was so much and so overwhelming that I thought that, it was always in retrospect, however, because while going through something, you think you're at the dumps, you feel so low. That's the human tendency. But then flashes and insights do come. Many people do not catch them. So they don't catch and capture the larger picture. So, but somehow I was blessed to be able to do so. So in that process, while seeing what's the best of the grimmest of situations or the darkest of the scenarios, I could collect these as gems and I preserve them and I wanted to share with everyone. And nobody reads. So, writing articles or books and all was not my cup of tea. I had alongside, I had a passion for poetry.
Okay.
So, which I picked up on my own. So, started penning my thoughts in the form of poems, and I found that it was shorter than prose, definitely. So the concepts could be conveyed in just 14-line poem or 16-line poem. So I said, why not? So I started writing, and the more I started writing, I polished my own poetry writing skills. So the more of what you do definitely gets shaped up for the better. So that's how I started, and now I have a huge collection of 300. I've written on various categories like children, women and children, nature, environment, health. So I have across various de-addiction. I have so many poems and in so many styles also.
Okay.
Some shaped poems, for example, like flower vases and this thing and all that. So using calligrams, So these are the things. Now I look forward to being able to bring more into the market. The immediate in the pipeline are my sequel to my first book, Poetic Reflections, which is going to be exactly like this, but with different poems and different ways of different ways of coaxing the human minds. My book is one which uses the twin medium of poetry and a workbook format. So it's an exercise format that they use to look into themselves. So that encourages reading, and it encourages self-reflection, it encourages family time. So at least you can choose portions of the book that suits you. You'll still get the best deal out of it.
Coming again to the most important aspect of your life, motherhood. You have been a homemaker, a mother, and now a grandmother. And how did you balance it out all together?
And I look at it, and when I find other women coming to my program where they seek some counseling. So I've had several counseling sessions. By the way, we have a tapping inner strength program, where my books can be used, my poetry can be used, my psychosocial counseling and coaching programs can be used. So when I find them, it's in complete contrast to how I had handled these. And one secret that I can, one mantra or secret or whatever you call it, could be being in the here and now. So while, say, clearing the dishes in the kitchen sink, or being with my grandson, or writing my poetry, or whatever, I completely cut off from other things. So yeah, I feel that that's the main reason. While doing something, they are into so many others mentally.
Okay.
So I've somehow never found that, and I attribute it to that. Well, everyone's opinion differs,
Yes.
so I just shared my piece of mind.
Okay. Okay. And what is your take on? There is a famous line saying, women can't have it all. What is your take on it?
Women can handle, provided again they are in the here and now, they are whether you need to don an appreciative outlook of life. So if you're too critical, see, if you allow your energies to dissipate, then definitely you can't have it all. Otherwise, there's nothing that you can't aspire and go in for. You can have, but you have to have realistic goals. Term benefits is wrong. That's what is misleading. You need to see it with a holistic perspective. Then you will be able to arrive at realistic goals. And if you can arrive, I don't think there's any limit to achievement. People have achieved so much.
Okay.
You can have it all. It all depends on what constitutes that all, right?
Yes. Yes.
It depends on that and how pertinent it is, how relevant it is, whether it comes in the way of others' progress. So many things that it's a totally holistic perspective is needed.
Okay. You have been through a lot of things. You have founded a company called Women's Energy. You have written a book, and you are a part of so many non-profit organizations as well as educational institutes. Now, looking back, was there a day when you felt that, I should just give it up, or did you have any bad days?
Not really. I've never regretted any decision that I've taken, or looked back, with cringingly on anything. I've never looked back with deep regret on anything. And I always looked at the larger picture and felt that, I always used to wrap up the lessons from that particular incident, positive or negative. So it held a lot in terms of lessons for my future.
Okay.
So I enjoyed life that way. I've always enjoyed life despite all the ups and downs. I've had my lion's share of problems and the thing, but then I somehow could sail smooth because of these. This is why I want to share it with others, And parents are the best persons who can give. Because it can't come suddenly when you confront the problem. You can't say, oh, I need to shape up my values. It doesn't happen like that. You need to have the values in your blood. It should be at ready reach. It should be in your subconscious. It should be at, at your access anytime. So you exercise, give to others, freely and unconditionally give. Giving is the
live with, interact with, and that's how we create a tribe.
And what goes around comes around. So you will only be doubly and enriched in a multi-faceted way, in a manifold way. You will be benefiting from.
Okay. Okay. So thank you so much, ma'am, for taking our time to speak to us today here at Her Club True Stories. And
more of our women's energy mission. I'm sure I have not been able to paint all complete picture of it. So we request the people to go on to our Facebook, which is
Yes,
our,
yes. I was about to say
and
that.
connected to know more.
Women
Like you
who,
came
yeah,
close to us.
yes, yes. Women who are interested, in general, people who are interested in whatever, Vaidehi ma'am has said so far, they can reach out to her or the Women's Synergy